All right, at this time, I'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. First of all, I'd like to welcome our new members, Mr. Wayne Mitchell from the Alta Vista Town Council. I just went by your town today on the way back from Danville. And returning member Charlie Watts from the County Board of Supervisors.
Wayne, you want to say a few words so that folks hear you?
Well, I'll be very brief, but I very much appreciate the opportunity to participate in this, and looking forward to looking and learning during these events. So thank you for the welcome aboard.
Thank you. And Charlie, you got any thoughts to share with the group? Welcome back. Mayor Connor, I would like to get the consensus of the commission to put into our minutes our appreciation to John Hardy of Campbell County and Bev Dalton of Alta Vista for their service, and to send them a nice note to say thank you. Can I get head nods or waves? Is that's okay to do? Did we put it in the minutes as a consensus item?
Yes, sir. Please introduce.
Okay, thank you. And Mayor Connor, just to make sure everybody knows, we do have our workforce council with us today in order to participate in our workforce discussion. And welcome to Kenneth Brown and Jennifer Moore, who are from their jurisdictions, as well as John Sharp and Renee Tweedy, who serve on both this board and that workforce council. Those are all the introductions that I know of.
All right, to our next item, approval of the meeting minutes, November 20 meeting. Does anybody have any additions or corrections? You should have a copy. Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion for approval.
So moved, Megan.
Move approval.
Yep. Any other discussion? Signify by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
All right, Mr. Christie with a financial update, please, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and welcome to Megan. Glad to see you tonight. We are at 41% of the year, and our expenses are about at 41%. There are no new revenues or new expenditure sources to report. We are a little bit behind in our revenue collection, but we expect that during the course of the year, there will be some larger one-time payments coming in that will offset and balance us up as we get closer to the end of the year. So no surprises so far with our financials, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have. You may or may not know that Rosalie Majerus has been sick during the Christmas vacation. She's back at work now part-time, but she had a hard time during Christmas. We're glad to have her back. Any questions or comments about the money so far? Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. That covers that finances. No action is needed tonight.
Sir.
We will have an audit. We will have an audit report at our March meeting for the year we finished July.
Thanks, sir. This time, we'll entertain the discussion from Lori Strumpf, the Strumpf President, on the update of the Central Virginia's Workforce Strategic Plan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and let me pass that on to Ben Bowman so he can introduce Lori and give you a little background about why the Workforce Board is doing this strategic plan update.
Yes, thank you, Gary, and I appreciate everyone joining today. And to give you a brief background, so the Central Virginia Workforce Development Board is under the umbrella of the Planning District Commission, And the Workforce Development Board has been designated as the regional convener for this region regarding workforce issues. And so what that looks like, the analogy I often use, is kind of like herding cats. We try to coordinate all the different entities, employment and training types of organizations, including schools and community colleges, so that we are doing what needs to be done to supply the talent that our businesses need to fulfill their purposes. And so every 4 years, we're required to do a strategic plan, and out of that, develop a local plan that reflects the different roles and responsibilities and the work that needs to be done within our region with the education and training providers. And so I'm really happy to have Lori Strumpf involved with us, helping us facilitate this process. She comes to us with a very good, and I guess it's fair to say, Lori, a long background in history of working with workforce development systems throughout the country. And rather than take any more of her time, I'd like to just go ahead and turn it over to her, because I think she has some very good, important questions to ask. And once again, I want to thank each of you for joining and getting your input. Our goal is to have a report done by the 1st of March. And we will continue to involve you and inform you as we go through the process. And most importantly, we want to make sure that the businesses in your localities have their voices heard. But Lori can explain more about what she's done to this point and what will happen from here out. Thank you. Lori?
Sorry, I'm not used to GoToMeeting, and so I'm just trying to get some of the things down. Thank you, Ben, and thank you, Gary. As Ben said, I've been facilitating this strategic planning process. And Mallory, I really need help. I just don't know how to do GoToMeeting, so I don't know how to share the screen. I just can't figure it out, so I'm really sorry. I have a PowerPoint presentation, but I'm not sure how to share the screen. So Mallory, do you have it? Thank you. So as Ben said, we've been facilitating a strategic planning process, and I wanted to just give a quick overview of where we are in the process, and then ask you all for some feedback and input. And so, Mallory, if you could go to the second slide, that'd be great. We put together a strategic planning team made up primarily of workforce development board members, and they've met 2 times so far, and once with the full workforce development board, where we were getting the same kind of feedback that I'm going to be asking you all about shortly. One of the things that this strategy is going to cover for the workforce system is really the next 15 to 18 months. Most of you have been involved in strategic planning. Some of you may have liked it, some of you may not have liked it, but you do strategic plans for 3 years or so. But with COVID, it's pretty clear that it's hard to identify what's even going to happen tomorrow. And so the board did decide that we would just take a 15 to 18 month horizon. And the conversations have focused primarily so far on what are the challenges that the workforce system is likely to face over the next 15 to 18 months. I'm going to try to engage you in that conversation in a bit. One of the things that my firm, which is an organizational change management company, is really focused on when we help organizations do strategy is that you're not so insular that you're only looking inside yourself. And so we always recommend that you try to get the voice of the customer into your strategy development. And so the workforce board agreed that that was an important thing to do. And so I have been running focus groups and interviews with businesses, partners, and job seekers to also get the voice of the customer. In your packet that you received, the first focus group report, which was done with businesses, is your attachment 4C. You can see the focus group report in the packet that you got. I've also this week been doing focus groups with stakeholders and job seekers, and have one more business focus group to run. And there'll be a second report that will capture their voices in that report. If you could go to the next slide, Mallory, that'd be great. Thank you so much. So we have been looking at what are the strategic challenges that the workforce system is likely to face over the next 15 to 18 months. And I keep focusing on the system, not just the board. This is the board's responsibility is to be a convener for the system, as Ben said, and the board's responsibility is to really think through what's the strategy for the system. So we're really talking about the workforce system, and that the workforce system really comprises all of the organizations and entities and the programs and activities that are meant to help individuals get jobs, help individuals move along a career pathway, and provide a skilled workforce to the region's economy. And so this strategy is really for that entire system. And I'm going to do a quick summary of the challenges that we've identified so far and some of the emerging areas. And then I'm going to be asking you for your feedback on whether you think we've captured some of those challenges, and if you have others, and what you think of the emerging areas, because those emerging areas will really turn themselves into strategic goals and priorities to update the current plan. Again, as a 15, 18-month horizon, we're not creating a brand new strategic plan, just looking at updating the current strategic plan. The group has been very data driven, and so we've used some economic forecast, labor market information, and you can see some of that in your attachment 4B in your packet. So Mallory, if you wouldn't mind going to the next slide. So there are 15 strategic challenges that have been identified through some brainstorming with the Workforce Board, with the Strategic Planning Committee, looking at the data and listening to the customers that we've talked to so far. You can read these as we walk through the slides. I categorize them into 5 areas. One set of strategic challenges is really focused on meeting the business's needs for a sustained ongoing talent pipeline, including helping people who have been recently unemployed due to the pandemic, who may not go back to the jobs that they currently or that they were laid off from. I think all of us know that hospitality and retail are going to be the hardest to come back, and there may not be as many jobs in those areas. However, what's interesting, and you'll see it in the focus group report, is in talking to your businesses, there are lots of job openings right now. They have job openings and they're finding it hard to fill them. And we have a lot of people that are unemployed. And so one of the key challenges, again, I'm doing this in summary, you can read the bullets, is getting those people who we have right now who are unemployed to the job openings, particularly in health and manufacturing in your area. So one key bucket of these 15 challenges is around meeting the business needs for talent. Another, and Mallory, you can stay on this slide for just a moment and I'll go through the others, but another is building awareness. People talk a lot about the fact that the workforce system is the best kept secret, and job seekers, people who are looking for work, don't know where to get resources. Access is another key area that came up, not having access to broadband, people can't be learning online, can't participate in online job fairs, et cetera, because they either don't have devices, don't have access to broadband, et cetera. So that's just a broad category of access. Coordination is the fourth kind of category I'd put these in, that the workforce system needs to be more aligned and more coordinated. And then, of course, there's just a whole series of challenges about getting through COVID and the impacts. So I categorize them, and then you can read, I have 15 on these slides: reaching out to the business community, training and retooling people their jobs, attracting people to the educational opportunities. You can go to the next slide, Mallory, if you don't mind. Access to broadband, as I said, limited access, which has really accelerated the equity gap. I think we all are understanding that the poor are getting poorer and don't have access to broadband. Workforce resources are disjointed, and we need to increase coordination among all the providers. The next slide, Mallory. Thank you for doing this. And increase collaboration. So again, that whole coordination, collaboration issue, more communication and outreach, again, building awareness of the system at all, building relationships among the entities to coordinate and collaborate, and again, building awareness. And I think the last slide that has the strategic challenges, Mallory, one last slide. And then getting through COVID and adjusting the workforce system to the long-term industry changes that COVID will have. Again, will some industries constrict permanently, such as hospitality, business, et cetera, while other industries may expand? And providing new technologies and industries, being on track with the training needs, and engaging parents and students and school personnel in K-12 to understand the types of jobs. That's a big one that's come up from the businesses, that again, in terms of meeting business needs, that businesses want to reach more into and have a systematic way that they can talk to parents and students in the K-12 system, so that everybody doesn't think that the only way to get a good job is to go to a four-year college. The businesses, and I work all over the country, I have to say this comes up a lot with a lot of businesses, that they think that schools push everybody to four-year colleges and that they don't give them enough information that you can get a really good job and make a really good living if you're in the trades, if you're in HVAC or manufacturing or any of those. And so that that is also a challenge that was identified. So from these challenges, we've had multiple conversations, and one last slide, I think, for me, and then I'm going to open it up. If you can go to the next slide, Mallory, it'd be great. So, two slides. So we have 4 areas of focus. You'll see they're emerging areas of focus, but they are partially about what the goals may end up being for the strategy over the next 15 to 18 months. To increase and strengthen coordination and collaboration, to create fast track training approaches to retrain and retool people who've lost jobs that may not come back. And Mallory, the last, second last slide. The third emerging priority is to address the increasing access to broadband for learning, work, business growth, and customer engagement. I would say on this one, the board absolutely recognizes that they can't fix that. They can't be the only people working on that. But one of the things, as Ben said, that the workforce, federally funded workforce legislation provides for workforce boards is that they convene around systems issues. And this may be a place where the board may want to work with others to see what it means to really increase access for broadband, and then increase communication and outreach to build awareness. So if you can go back one slide, Mallory, just for a second so people can see. So from those 15 focus areas of emerging strategic challenges, we've got strengthen coordination, collaboration, fast track training to help people get to jobs. The next slide. Awareness and access to broadband. So those are the things that are emerging. And so what I'd like to do, and was asked to do, was to open this up to a conversation. Just the very last slide, Mallory, for a moment, is what you all see as the strategic challenges that the workforce system faces over the next 12 to 18 months, either more conversation around awareness, access, coordination, impacts of COVID, building a talent pipeline, or other things that you see. So Mallory, if you could stop sharing the screen, it's always helpful to me if I can just see the people as they talk. Thank you. And Mallory, thank you for doing that. So I'd like to open it up and ask if anyone has anything that they'd either like to ask me a question about, or something that you see that may have been missing or you want to speak to about strategic challenges. Yes, Mr. Chairman, I see your hand up.
One thing, we see a upcoming increase in the minimum wage. How many of the businesses have brought that up as a challenge that they're looking at?
They have not brought it up in the sense that they brought it up in a different way than you're asking. So they didn't bring it up as the more traditional way, like increasing the minimum wage is going to be a problem for us. They brought it up in terms of retention. Most of the businesses that I've talked to in your area and in surrounding areas in Virginia, because I'm doing some of this work in contiguous areas to you, they've raised the fact that they have to keep raising their wages to stay competitive. So I think this is my supposition, being in the workforce field, Mr. Chairman, over the last 40 years. I think we're in a moment in time where businesses are beginning to realize that people will leave them for 50 cents more someplace else. And so they've each raised retention as a huge issue, and they've all been raising their wages. And they talked to, like, some of them spoke to the fact that they're beginning to top out and they can't be any more competitive with some of the larger firms, et cetera. So there was no complaint like wages are going to go up, our minimum wage is going to go up, and this is going to be a problem for us. They talked about the fact that they've been steadily increasing their wages because retention is an issue for them. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. Appreciate that.
Others? We really would love your feedback. I know you don't know me, but you're all talkers, I'm sure. Mr. Rogers, do I see you?
Yeah, it's funny. I get picked on as the talker in this group. Thank you for your presentation and your work with workforce. I do actually have a question. The strategic trends you just talked us through are kind of, to my mind, macro level trends across all sectors. Has there been any discussion about specific needs of particular industry clusters or specific areas in our region that may be feeling some struggles more acutely than others?
Yes, so in two ways. First of all, your own workforce board has identified what they call targeted industries based on some labor market demand. That's based more on high wage, high growth, and the need for employees. And Ben can say them off the top quicker than I can, but health is one of them. And was logistics and transportation one of them?
Manufacturing, healthcare, and construction are the top three. And we, quite frankly, have tried to align our growth areas with the priorities that were established by the Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy that you all, as well as Megan, were involved with. So we're trying to be in sync with the SEDS as well, in manufacturing, healthcare, construction, and those are the kind of the big three for now.
And so the strategic plan, Mr. Rogers, will focus on whatever the macro strategies are. There are macro strategies for those industries. Do you know? So they would get applied in that way. And then when I talk to the production folks, I talk to the folks in production industry, some of the manufacturing stuff, and healthcare. You have healthcare people who are dying for nurses and for CNAs, and they're using traveling nurses, which they are not happy about. They would love to get the talent pipeline going, but again, pay is always an issue and those things. So, but those are the three industries your board is focused on.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. I did realize we had some target clusters. I just want to make sure there's an intersection between these strategic initiatives and the very specific needs of those cluster areas. So, as to where the strategy becomes tactics to stay in the jargon, how do we drill these down so that they're of benefit to the healthcare industry, the construction industry, et cetera. So just want to make sure that we put feet on this. Strategic initiatives are great. Just want them to be actionable for our regional priority clusters.
Yeah, I think that you're exactly right. And when I think of strategy, I think of a two-level plan. One is the strategic plan, which may be at the 20,000-foot level, but it's got to be followed up with an operations plan, right? That then says, here are the tactics to make these strategies come forward. Here's who's going to that tactic. Here's how much money needs to be put, if there's money that needs to be put, and here's the time frame within which that tactic needs to be deployed. So all of that may not come out in the strategic level, but then there's got to be a business plan that follows that up.
Right. Okay. That's what I'm after. Thank you.
Other folks? Anybody else?
Yeah, this is John Sharp, Bedford County. I was just going to say, most of the stuff you covered, I think it's somewhat intuitive, and I think that our region is not unique. I suspect the issues that we are encountering are pretty much similar to most of the localities, in the Commonwealth of Virginia, save a couple that may not have the broadband issues that we might have. But obviously there's going to be different sectors that things can be applied to. However, I didn't see anything that with earth shattering and or gave me any additional enlightenment that I didn't already have. I do think the issue that was brought up with respect to the minimum wage. I mean, obviously that's a new development related to the election, and I assume that you've been working on the study now well before the November election. But it's been choreographed that that's going to happen. I don't know what the rollout's going to be, how long that's going to be to phase in. I doubt it's going to happen overnight.
That's right.
Nevertheless, I have heard from businesses that say they're going to find it hard to hire younger people for training. Younger people are already struggling as it is, and those are the ones that are going to tend to get left behind and not have the opportunity to gain experience. And then some industries, we even see it in say at McDonald's, where they want you to use the automated ordering now rather than go up and order. So they're really pushing to transition to a kiosk rather than a person. And so they're trying to eliminate positions, recognizing that if they can go to some additional automation, they can save a tremendous amount of money as the minimum wage goes up. So I think we're going to have fewer service industry type jobs that don't require maybe a higher skill level, but we're also going to have a greater impact on the younger people who are trying to enter the workforce. And I think that's got to be on our horizon. We've got to come up with a strategy to address that particular issue, because I don't know if there's anything that can be done about preventing the minimum wage from increasing. So we've got to play with the cards that we're going to be dealt, and we've got to figure out a way to play this game going forward. So that would be my contribution.
So, Mr. Sharp, I think that's great. I just want to comment on a couple things, if you don't mind. I do think that a lot of the issues are not earth-shattering, but I think it is important that they get validated by a broader group, right? So the fact that they're not earth-shattering, the fact that nothing comes up as a surprise, says great. So everybody's kind of on the same page agreeing. There are some things, though, that keep coming up in my experience, like coordination and those things. And the surprise for me always is, why haven't we fixed it yet? Do you know what I mean? So there's that. And then the automation issue, I think it's coming from wages, but that automation was happening even before the $15 minimum wage conversation. I mean, McDonald's, I was going to kiosks in places several years ago. And I think the issue you raised about how do young people then get any work experience, because we don't, an entry-level job maybe shouldn't be paying a young person $15 an hour, or employers don't want to do that, is a key critical issue. It also relates to skills to me, because while there may be less people, I said that those industries are going to shrink, they do require a different skill set. So what are we doing to also make sure that we're upping the game around the skills that young people need? Don't you think?
Absolutely. But, I think that, we're trying to, again, I can't do anything about the direction of where the minimum wage is going, but I'm expressing my frustration in the respect that we're getting away from letting the market decide. And as you just mentioned, and the market is already uh, addressing it without the government addressing it.
Right.
And when the government addresses it by creating an artificial minimum, then it puts additional pressures elsewhere in the system. And I don't think it's good for the system in the long run, because then we have a more difficult situation with respect to entering young people into the workforce. But it also will, it's a short-term gain, because prices will go up for everything. It's an inflationary effect. So even though you might feel better because you think you're making more money, you're gonna, the price of everything's gonna go up as well, and you're not really gonna make more money. And what it's really gonna do is, if other higher wages do not go up in accordance, then it's really not a positive net benefit. But anyway, the reality is, I don't think we can do anything about that, but I think there's going to be additional challenges going forward related to this impact. And I'm curious, again, I don't know what that ramp rate is going to be, but depending on what that ramp rate is, it could be a very painful thing that we go through.
I got it. Thank you so much. Anybody else? Other folks?
I'm Trinae. I'm sorry. I came in on your presentation. I think I apologize. I've been on Teams, Ring, Zoom, and now GoToMeetings all today. So question, because my thing is giving people the skills they need. And you touched on it, and that's where I'm just, if I missed it, I'm sorry, but where are we giving folks those skills in this region that will get them those higher paying jobs? If they're young and they get the skills, their pay is justified. If they're older and they get the skills, their pay is justified. If it's teaching them artificial intelligence to fix the kiosk or to do something at McDonald's, where are we honing in on those higher level skill sets and pay, and how are we supporting people to get those skills?
So
Because
oops, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to
no,
cut
you go ahead. Please go ahead.
So you didn't miss it in the sense that we didn't talk about skills specifically, but you're raising the right issues. So in the category of the strategic challenges that I overviewed, and I don't know where you came in, Trini, but it's fine. I get the whole kind of like back-to-back meetings on different platforms, right? It's really, you got to figure out which one you're on. So business, one of the key sets of challenges were around building a talent pipeline for businesses and being able to both meet their short-term and long-term needs. And in that set of conversations around that, we will, as the planning committee, be looking at a strategy, I'm sure, around how to make sure that people have the skills that they need going forward. And so there's two sets of skills. I'm going to say this to check with you. There's what we call, Strumpf Associates, my firm calls the essential workplace skills, which are the executive functioning what people used to call soft skills, but I just don't like that terminology because it makes them sound secondary. So we call them essential workplace skills, but they are the executive functioning skills: being on time, being able to organize, having some level of higher order thinking, being able to sequence. They're the kind of processing skills. And then there's the technical skills that you need, just like you said. So maybe you're not going to be a cashier at McDonald's anymore, but a job is going to be created in being able to maintain the kiosk, right? And it may not need you to be able to build the thing, but you should be able to fix the thing, or at least troubleshoot it. And so one of the strategic challenges that I did talk about was how to be in front of that and how to deliver those skills. And so we haven't gotten there all the way yet, but it's certainly on the plate to make sure it's in the plan. But would you agree that those are the kind of sets of skills that we're talking about?
I would, and I think Frank Rogers and I had talked about before becoming a region that we wrap our education, we wrap our workforce, and I know Ben and them are working on it around that. And now that we're in COVID and we're at so many different levels of education, bringing people back in, combining how we're going to come out of that and into this, I think it just has to be a regional focus. I know I'm probably sounding like I've said it 50 million times. That's because I probably said it 51 million times, but
Yeah, but not to me, So it's new
okay.
to me.
But it's just, it takes everyone wrapping around it. And then what I found, and Bren, you all are more recently into it than I was, the supportive service piece for people, if they're adults already out of there, it's going to be even tougher now to keep them engaged in getting those skill sets. So I don't know if as a region, like we focus on how to really build the pipeline with the supportive services, putting the money and the education around it to get where we need to go for our businesses. But I'd rather think on the higher end of how to get people those skill sets rather than what are we paying somebody to put the cheeseburger in the bag. And I'd rather focus on getting them into the jobs that we know we would all want to take care of our families and livelihoods.
Absolutely. And it is going to come up. It just wasn't on the slides because it's at the specific level that we just haven't quite gotten to yet. But I think you're exactly right. And it's about the skills, and it's about how you get people the skills and how you wrap the services around to help people stay engaged and also bring people up. So, and actually the stakeholder group I just interviewed yesterday in your region, partners talked about needing a better continuum so that people did get a set of wraparound services. And the people that we're going to deal with now, the people who have been in some ways traumatized by COVID and stuff, are going to need more intensive service, was what some of the partners were talking about yesterday. Thank you. Anybody else? So I think the board wants to know, I mean, you have Nat here and Ben and myself and a couple of other board members. If you as the elected officials and others think that we're, at least in this early stage, on the right track, like we're thinking about the right things. So I have the skills that Trini raised, John's issue around how to make sure that young people are going to get into the pipeline with higher wage when businesses are constricting and automating because of potentially the higher minimum wage. Anybody else? So we are going to focus on the coordinated service delivery. Some of the things Trini talked about. Coordinated service delivery for me is a big category that includes how do you build wraparound services, focusing on the skill sets to build a talent pipeline, really focused on how do you bring young people in and make sure they get the experiences that they need, awareness, access. Those are the keys for the moment. And Roger, Mr. Rogers, to your point, making sure that all of that is about where the is in terms of the industries, not just some generic big platform.
Yeah, thank you. I just one other quick question, Ben or Lori, just at some point, I'd be curious to see the businesses you've actually talked to. I'm sure you're keeping a roster of the folks who provided feedback. I wonder which industries have actually been responsive.
So there's two things. One is I can tell you the industry sectors that were invited, but I do promise people anonymity in the focus group. So I can't tell you who the exact people were, but I can tell you the industries. And so we haven't had as great a turnout as I would have liked. So far only talked to 5 businesses, so it's not a lot. Healthcare, tourism and recreation, and manufacturing. And I have another focus group with businesses scheduled next week. And Ben will talk to you about what other sectors got invited. But that's the sectors that I talked to. And 5 is not a lot, certainly not a lot. We're trying to build that up a bit by doing more of them. Ben, did you want to answer Mr. Rogers as well?
And so the other thing, we did have a focus meeting with the whole workforce board a week ago. And as you may or may not be aware, our board has to be at least a majority private sector business. So we're able to get a little bit of business input at that time. And we will be doing some additional follow-up. The businesses that we've been working with, been engaged with over the past year, there again, we're trying to get their voices connected at this upcoming meeting next week that Lori is having as well. So,
but right now that the representation has been about 10 or 11 businesses when you count the business members who were on the board who spoke during our meeting, and then the 5 I spoke to last week, and hopefully there'll be another 8 or 10 next week. And again, it's always just a sample, right? But at least it's some of those voices. And if you have suggestions, Ben would be more than open to getting them. Okay, anybody else? So, Mr. Chairman, I appreciate the time to have this conversation. I don't know if you wanted to ask anybody else any questions or had any questions of me.
No, I think it was a very well done presentation. Thank you for answering those presented questions. We appreciate y'all attending our meeting.
yeah. And I would say if you do have additional questions or thoughts, be sure and email me, call me, let me know. You know, this is a work in progress. We'll be pulling the information together. We'll be sharing it out. We do have to put the draft plan out for public review and input. So stay tuned for that, and we'll get a chance to fine tune that. And ultimately, once we get the strategic plan together, our next step is to develop our local plan that really addresses the details that Mr. Rogers was asking about.
Gary, did you have anything else that you wanted to prompt me? Gary's been participating in the groups that we didn't talk about that you just want to make sure we covered.
Thank you for being here tonight, and I think we have covered as much as we can, and appreciate your time, Ben and Lori. Mr. Chairman, let's wrap this part up and move on to the next part of our agenda and keep on working.
Well, thank you all for inviting me. Shall I leave? I'm going to leave now. Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Lori.
everybody. Bye.
All right, next on the agenda, overview of our long-range transportation plan dashboard. Ada Hunsberger presenting. Ada?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mallory, if you could just make me presenter, Mallory. And okay, so assuming you can all see my screen here. Good evening, everyone. I just wanted to walk you through our new long-range transportation plan dashboard to show you how it works, how we can use this tool to make transportation planning more engaging and interactive to the public. I will try my very best not to be long-winded. So just a little bit about the platform. The My Sidewalk platform was created by a Kansas City-based startup, and it was built to be an interactive way to share maps, graphs, and charts, and allow us to have the most accurate and up-to-date data as possible. And it does this by dynamically updating as soon as new data becomes available. So for example, when the new census data is released later this year, the maps and charts and graphs will automatically update with that information. So it's a good way to get data to be more interactive and correct. And additionally, My Sidewalk has a custom report feature, which allows us to generate reports quickly and efficiently. And Philip will be walking you through that function later on. But for now, I'd just like to show you what our plan dashboard looks like. So as you enter the dashboard, you'll find information about the TPO, links to information and documents about transportation planning as a whole. And as you can see on the left-hand side, we have the menu tabs, which I'll walk through briefly. So starting off with the demographics section, we have a vast array of data. And although a lot of these data points are corresponding with the long-range transportation plan and therefore the urbanized areas, a lot of the data points we've also included to show the non-urbanized areas so that both the urban and rural localities can use this platform. So there's things like population data and growth projections, as well as a breakdown of population by age and county, as well as transportation and commuting data, as you can see here. One of the really unique features of My Sidewalk is the ability to display information in a number of different formats. So for time travel data, we're able to display the data as a chart to compare between jurisdictions, and also show it as a map to compare between block groups. Next up, we have the Connect Central Virginia 2045 tab. And in this section, you can download the PEN documents and learn more about how we integrated both the rural long-range plan and the Lynchburg connectivity study into this new document, which we hadn't been able to do in the past. So moving along to the performance measures tab, there are 5 pages which are able to choose from, which you can see on the left-hand side here, which were representative of the performance measures which we used for scoring projects within the plan. You can see each of those measures was weighted, and on each of the 5 pages, you can read more about how we use those categories to score projects. The scoring methodology mimics the way that projects are scored through the Smart Scale process as well. And I just want to take a second to highlight how this plan is different from those in the past. This time around, we worked directly with VDOT to create a scoring mechanism that mimics the way that projects are scored in the Smart Scale process. And we were really one of the first PDCs to develop this technology. So by being able to use this as a basis for our project applications going forward, we now have a strong data-driven way for us to be able to attract state investment to our region. And again, if you want to know more about this process, through the dashboard, you can read about how we developed each category and information on each of the tabs there as well. So next we have a section called planning areas, which encompasses bike ped, freight, roads, safety, and transit. One really great feature of this platform is that you can easily create interactive maps. So this map in particular is a map of the survey responses we received regarding bike ped facilities. And you can actually hover over each of the data points, as you can see here, and read the responses that we received. So I think this is a really great tool for public engagement and to allow citizens to see what others have already commented, just to kind of build a sense of community within engagement. And lastly, there is the 2045 project summary, which has a list of projects as both a chart and a map. So that's pretty self-explanatory. Overall, we think this is a really helpful tool for you to be able to access data quickly and know that it's the most up-to-date data as it dynamically updates. And hopefully we'll give the public an interactive tool to learn more about how transportation planning works. And as I said earlier, this is good for both the rural and urban areas, and we hope that it can be of use to you. So we'll provide you the link to the dashboard. It's also here, but it's in the agenda packet as well. And we would love to hear your feedback or comments. We'll be updating this on a rolling basis, so no specific timeline on that, but just wanted to make you aware of it and kind of walk you through what's available now. So if there's any questions, I'd be happy to take them.
Well, you've done a good job of presenting information. Nobody's got any questions. Thank you. Ada, we appreciate that presentation. At this time, if nobody has any questions, we'll move on to creating the online data drive reports for communities. Philip, I may assassinate this. Philip Gabathler.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just going to share my screen here. Okay, so yeah, jumping right into it. Can everyone see that introduction screen?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. So yeah, so we've contracted, as Ada said, with the My Sidewalk company in designing our dashboard for the long range plan, but we also have another service available, which is generating these reports for all of our localities on any type of planning initiatives or issues that you all may be facing. So today I just want to walk through, how quickly we can generate a report and what it would look like as a link from a project webpage or your county or town website or city. So here you can see there's a couple of templates already available that have preloaded data and so forth in it. You can see here the COVID-19 dashboard, which we also have on our website right now with the numbers being updated daily. So you can check that out. It has data specific to all the localities as well as Virginia, and so check that out. But there's also a couple others too, which deal with broadband availability, housing affordability, and so forth. But today I'm just going to show you how to create a blank report, say for example, for Bedford County today, if folks were interested in visualizing commute times in the county. So, you would go in, you would create a report and select the geography, and then immediately after that, you would be able to generate all types of charts and graphs based on data from the census, data from HUD, data from USDOT, and I have a comprehensive list at the end of the presentation that's kind of interesting to look at, which shows you all the types of data you can pull into these reports to get your point across. But as I said today, just a quick example on commute times. Here I created a quick map of the census tracts in Bedford County, and we pulled in the average commute times from all these census tracts here. So here's the data, and just a couple of quick back end things. You can make a map where it's not static, it's dynamic, so you can zoom in on your specific neighborhood, subdivision, whatever it is, to see when you hover over what the average mean commute time would be. In this instance, south of 460 in this census tract is 26 minutes. And that's just the beginning. You can pull in other localities to show how your locality compares, not just regionally, but statewide or other similar localities across the U.S. Couple of quick graphs. You can, as I said, median commute distance. There's also projected data available as far as the number of commuters you have in your locality in the upper right-hand corner. The mode choice in the lower left there. And then this is kind of interesting. This pie graph shows the breakdown of people in your jurisdiction working in your jurisdiction versus commuting out. So if you were to be creating a report like this for just a project team or or staff within your jurisdiction, then you could make it password protected, share the link, and only they would be able to see it. But then you could also create it where it's publicly viewable and, create a quick link, which you can just embed. And here, I'll show you what it kind of looks like in action here. So this did not take much time at all to compilate here. Add images, text, and then the actual graphics here, which you can see this map that I created. You can zoom in and hover over to see what the average commute times are, and so forth. So yeah, this is by no means meant for transportation related items. As I said, the data set sources, it goes on and on, from the census all the way down to elections, down to FBI uniform crime reporting, CDC data, and so forth. So it really is a great resource that we would love as the PDC to offer while we're contracted with My Sidewalk, which I think is the next 2 years. We wanted to give a quick presentation and just let you all know of that service. I'm glad to take any questions.
So if I may, Philip, thanks for the presentation. Are there any reports you're going to be pulling out of this on a routine basis just for the benefit of the members, or is this all going to be sort of a la carte?
Yeah, so it'll be case by case. I mean, I didn't mention that all of this data, once you create a report, is automatically updated if a new iteration of the data becomes available. That's another nice thing of our subscription. But our dashboard, there's a lot of information on there. It certainly doesn't just pertain to transportation. It's kind of holistic dashboard with all types of information. But to your point, yes, we would need to have inquiries to develop specific reports.
Yeah, Frank, the only thing we're doing now on an ongoing basis is a COVID-19 report of activity in our region in each jurisdiction, which is on our website, CVPDC.org. Thanks, Philip, and Mr. Chairman. That's our presentation on that topic.
All right, is there any other business from any member of staff to come before the committee?
Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to report that I and staff are working with Dr. Gately at the Health Department and each jurisdiction's emergency services providers, doing some planning on vaccine distribution. Where that will lead is hard to say, especially in the light that the quantities of vaccine are so small at this point. But the PDC is involved in that planning process.
Glad to hear that. Anyone else?
And I want to say thanks for everybody. This is a great turnout. A great turnout of members and guests. So I really appreciate everybody coming out tonight and participating.
Well, it's good to see everybody that I can see on this little phone. Our next meeting is scheduled for March 18th, 2021 at 5 p.m. If there's no further business to be taken care of at this time, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
Move to adjourn.
And a second. We'll assume all are in the positive unless there's some dissent. Is anybody in the dissent of not adjourning at this time? Mr. Christie, thank you all for attending. We hope to see you back next time.
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate your work.
Take care, everyone. See y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you.